Your career matters. Your work-life balance matters. Your financial security matters. If you've ever thought, even for a moment, that business ownership is the path that you need to take to achieve these things, freedom, flexibility, financial security, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Unintentional Entrepreneur. Leverage your corporate experience to create a successful business. I'm Rob Mandelberg, and I'm joined by an expert in the job market, in the recruitment industry, and in business ownership. Jeff Herzog is the president of FPC National, a Forbes top 10 ranked executive recruiting firm with more than 60 offices throughout the country. And he's a hell of a nice guy, too. Let's drop a hey, Jeff. If you're out there and you want to say hello, make him feel comfortable, write in the comments, drop in a hey, Jeff, to get everything started here. And as we're talking today, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments and we will address them a little bit later. Jeff, let me ask you, why business ownership now? Why is now the right time for business ownership?
Well, so many things have happened over the last couple of years, Rob, and it's great to be talking about this. I mean, this is something I talk to my friends about, talk to people about all day long, but it's great that we have a good group of people here. And, I think COVID accelerated a lot of things. People are reinvesting back in themselves, their well-being. Obviously, mental health is an incredibly important component, but it just gives you the ability to own your own future. I think people are sick and tired of relocating for their job. They really are not thrilled about being platinum on Delta any longer. Maybe they just are sick of working for people. And let's be honest, I mean, ageism is a factor. People are having a tougher time getting a job as their career goes on and on. So I just think for so many reasons, the market for opening your own business and also job security is just gotten better and better.
Yeah, that's probably a reason why last year I was surprised to find that more than 5 million new businesses were started last year alone. And that's indicative of exactly what you're talking about. People want more of that financial security. They want to be able to be their own boss and be in control of their future. You talked a little bit about some of the obstacles you are seeing as a recruiter, age discrimination within the workforce.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate truth, Rob. I mean, I think a lot of people want to sort of sweep that idea under the rug, but the statistics show that ageism starts at about age 46. So as of tomorrow, I'm 5 years in the hole. So I'm glad I chose to own my own business 16 years ago. But it is a reality. And I think that, obviously there are rules around it, but it's this unspoken truth that is causing people a lot of challenges when they get into their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Yet, they still either have to work, want to do something to be able to sort of explore, what the boundaries of their capabilities are, create something that they can leave for their children, or create an entity that has sellable value at the end. So for so many reasons, it's been an incredible couple of years for business ownership.
Yeah, first of all, happy early birthday. I did not realize that you were a May birthday, but happy birthday. I hope you have a good one. You talk a little bit about some of the reasons. You say here we talk about create a legacy. We talk about also you could work anywhere you want. That's something that people, I think, what a huge advantage to not be tied to one geographic area. And you get to do what you love as well.
We have so many of our franchisees perhaps worked in a location. Maybe it's not a densely populated area with tons of corporations, and for one reason or another, they're in transition, but they built a life in a specific area and they don't want to move. And think about this. I mean, it's almost like you can't even move these days. Perhaps they refinanced their mortgage 3 years ago at 3.25%. Now to move, to take out a new mortgage, you're looking at 6%. So location makes the biggest difference. Our recruiting, all of our offices, there was a time years ago where 60% of the placements we made around the country involved a relocation. In 2022, 80% did not include a relocation. So that just gives you an idea. People don't want to go anywhere. So business ownership allows you to work wherever you want, and to be able to work when you're on vacation or anywhere you want, to be able to open your laptop and get to work and use your phone.
Huge advantage. I mean, you're creating your own future. You're making your own decisions. You're building a business where it suits you, and you get to have a lot of say in what your future direction is. I also saw another statistic that maybe you could speak on a little bit.
Sure.
The job market is no longer as stable and secure. Did you know that and I'm sure you did, the average length of time that people stay with a job is just a little bit over 4 years, much different than our parents, our grandparents. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, we see it all the time, and unfortunately, I think people, I've seen people who go to a new job every 18 months. I mean, gone are the days where our grandparents retired from their 30 years at the corporation with a pile of stock certificates and a pension plan. Right? Seems like the velocity of the job market just continues to get faster and faster, and we're very particular about people showing consistency, but you see it less and less, which makes the job market even more difficult. And employers are really, really particular about leaving job too early and moving from one to the next.
Makes a lot of sense. And to add on to all of that, all of a sudden, it seems like AI, and specifically ChatGPT, is causing such a huge disruption in the industry. And people who thought that they were in secure jobs, they're going to ride it out for the rest of their careers. Now, all of a sudden, it looks like within the next couple of years, that might not be the case.
You couldn't let me get away without talking about ChatGPT, right? It's just unbelievable how AI has permeated our everyday world, on the radio, on TV. I mean, it's in every discussion. We're doing a training on it next week. It's really pretty amazing. Honestly, and I listen to Bloomberg all the time, and then somebody on Bloomberg this morning said that we don't have any idea of the ultimate impact on who it's going to have the biggest impact. I do know, as recruiters, the internet and technology has been nipping at our heels for many, many years now, whether it was, headhunter.net, Hot Jobs, Career Builder, and Monster back in the early 2000s, to LinkedIn, and now ChatGPT. We're still here. We're still making placements, charging the same thing we were charging 30, 40, 50 years ago. So we don't know the impact. Is it going to have an impact? Yeah, it already is. There are companies in the education technology space that provide, homework answers for college kids that are already losing subscribers because people are just going to ChatGPT to get an answer. So it is definitely causing uncertainty, and we don't know what the overall impact is going to be in the future.
Right. It seems to have just come upon us immediately. Every day you hear of another field that is in jeopardy. Coders, writers, even artists and musicians, they're no longer safe in their in knowing that their job is going to be here because of AI and other technological developments. I know that we're giving a lot of information here, but you don't have to sit here with pen and paper taking notes. If you'd like, just drop a recap, #recap into the comments, and we'll make sure that you get a recap of this discussion and you can kind of look at it. Just sit back and enjoy, and you can learn a little bit more about entrepreneurship, the unintentional entrepreneur. Jeff, you were the first person I heard who mentioned this term, the unintentional entrepreneur, and it conjures up such imagery. Can you tell me, what is an unintentional entrepreneur?
So, most broadly speaking, it's the antithesis to what I think most people think of when they hear the word entrepreneur. The hoodie wearing, big thinking, sneaker wearing type of 20-something who dropped out of school and went to start their own company and make billions of dollars. That's not us. That's not me. I think that I am the perfect example of the unintentional entrepreneur. I spent some time on Wall Street as a stockbroker, so I got exposed to finance. I moved on to being an art auctioneer, which gave me experience in public speaking. I got my first foray into recruiting in the late 90s, so I dealt a lot with human resources. I then moved on to work for a division of Tribune Corporation, which gave me big board and executive presentation experience. And my point is that it's the amalgamation of all of that corporate experience that has qualified me, at least I believe, to be a successful business owner. And I think this misconception is dangerous because I think it deters people from starting their own business because they're just downright afraid that they don't know what they're doing.
Really, really interesting. So, you talk about a little bit about your background, public speaking and recruitment, and how it led you all here to be a business owner. Everybody has their own unique set of experiences, skills, knowledge, background. I'm just wondering, is this for anybody, or do you find that people who are in certain professions, certain industries, certain roles are more prepared to start and run a successful business?
So it depends on which business you're starting. There's no question. It's very, you see people open up a fast food restaurant, for instance. There's a good chance they didn't necessarily have that experience or understand that side of the market. In our world, it makes a huge difference. And we have a huge, diverse group of owners in our franchise system that come out of all aspects of manufacturing. Some come out of sales and marketing. Some come out of engineering. We've got a ton of engineers, people who were in supply chain and logistics. We even have some folks place actuaries in health insurance companies, people who place administrators in hospitals. But it's that they had the experience before they started their own business in that specific industry and discipline. So in our world, it makes a big difference. Obviously, when you're just deciding and vetting out different business opportunities, you want to weigh that against the opportunity. Does my experience line up? And put a check next to each part of the responsibilities of being a business owner, and make sure you look closely as to whether or not you feel like you have that experience.
Really good points. You've talked to me in the past about some of the qualities that you look for when seeing if somebody is going to be successful at being a business owner. And one of them that really stuck with me here is that they are process oriented. And it's funny because you're talking about people who are able to follow certain processes, follow a proven system, follow a roadmap. How does that relate to business ownership?
Yeah, so you have to be extremely regimented because guess what? You don't have a boss. Then that could be great for many of us, and it may be challenging for others. So process orientation is really important for a couple of reasons. Obviously, to your point, you have to follow whatever the proven process is. If you're going to do research, go find a process, or you're going to just buy a franchise and somebody will be able to teach you the process. But also, and this goes back to technology, what process orientation does and why it's so much more important today than it was 20 years ago is technology could be an enormous distraction. When we train recruiters, we actually talk about social media as weapons of mass distraction. And so it's really important that you focus on being process oriented so you're doing meaningful, important, valuable work every day and not just letting the day go by going down some rabbit holes.
So that's just to piggyback on that comment here, process oriented. So people who are involved in more regimented roles, that's why you said like people in technology positions, engineers, people in the military, people who are used to following proven systems, they seem to already have that under their belt.
Yeah, and that's another thing. We have a lot of our franchisees came out of the military, went into corporate experience, into the corporate world, and then decided to buy a franchise. Their process orientation and a regimented nature, as well as their focus on metrics, and that's something else we talk about all the time, is their focus on metrics. You need to plan. It's a four-letter word we use here all the time. Plan, plan, plan. The old adage is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's never been more important than in business ownership, because if you just let the day sort of direct what you're going to do, you're never going to accomplish anything. So it's that process orientation that drives you to be metrics driven, I think are two of the most important qualities.
That's great. I mean, there's probably lots of qualities that you could mention here, but those are two excellent ones. You also talked a little bit about one very important quality, which is that if you have humility, that you're also more likely to succeed. What can you say about that?
Probably the most underrated trait, and it speaks directly to emotional intelligence. And some of this is a little amorphous. It's kind of hard to train, but humility in particular, I think, is probably one of the most misunderstood traits of them all. I think a lot of people believe that humility means if you're humble, that you're passive. When in reality, humility in my mind, and I read a book a while ago called Egonomics, which was phenomenal. I highly recommend it. It talks about humility as basically knowing what you know, but knowing also what you don't know and how you need to use other people and resources to get that information. So, we bring a lot of people into our system who are in the corporate world. They think they know it all, but what the most successful people, the ones who say, hey, I know what I know, let these people teach me how to leverage it and not know it all. So I think humility is an incredibly important trait to have.
Yeah, and you keep touching upon certain points that we're kind of teasing it out a little bit here, but it sounds like when you give them the systems, when you show, where you're giving the implication that there are opportunities out there, that people do have that kind of support. They do have that kind of network that they can tap into. And I don't want to give any spoilers here, but I'm looking forward to that part of the discussion when you're going to tell us a little bit about some of those opportunities where this process orientation and metrics-driven personality come into play.
Sure.
There's one other area, however, that you mentioned that I think is very important to discuss, and that is the quality of being people-centered. Tell me about how that plays into entrepreneurship.
Well, our main core value at our company is it's all about the people, and people in our world are everything, because there are franchisees, our recruiters, our candidates, our clients, and all the support folks that we work with on a daily basis. We're in the people business. We've been called headhunters and flesh peddlers in the past, but more importantly, really being interested in people. I'm fascinated by smart people. I love new business ideas. I love innovative, driven people. So you really want to be interested. And I'm not necessarily saying you need to like everybody, nor does your goal have to be to actually help people. Keep that in mind. The collateral benefit of what I do in the recruiting business, or what we do, is that we help people. We're a for-profit business, and the collateral benefit is we help people. But overall, just to make sure that you are open and interested in working with people, partnering, focused on open innovation, again, leveraging what you do well, and then utilizing other people, for perhaps a franchisor, if you will, to help you fill in the blanks.
And you talk a little bit about the leveraging the experience that you have, and that makes total sense. Can you touch upon some of those areas that, let's say, a typical manager or a director of a department might be involved with, that prepare them for business ownership?
Sure. I mean, every interaction you have, if you're a director of, let's call it director of supply chain, for instance, right now, and you, throughout your career, maybe you have 20 years of experience, chances are you have interacted with human resources, both as an employee and as a hiring manager. You've probably been placed by a recruiter, or you've used a recruiter to hire people. So you've got the human resources and recruitment aspect out of the way. Perhaps you've managed a P&L. So you now have exposure to a P&L, a balance sheet for your department. You understand costs, you understand EBITDA and contribution. Let's say you probably or work closely with procurement to help negotiate contracts and buy things cheaper. You probably worked with sales and marketing to understand, there's something called S&OP in supply chain, sales and operations planning, and it's bringing together the front end of the business and the back end of the business. So you've interacted with all of those people. You have, and look, this is one of the most overused words on resumes, or hyphenated words, is cross-functional. But that cross-functional experience, you don't know it, but that cross-functional experience is what really prepares you to be a successful business owner, because you're going to interact with clients and consumers and vendors and all sorts of people. And just by being able to go through your career at various levels, that you're going to have more innate knowledge once you get started than you even ever would have believed.
Incredible. So you're basically saying that whatever the experience that you have, the contacts you have, the departments you're overseeing, the departments you've been involved with, the people you interact with, basically you're going to do pretty much the same type of work, but now you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And contacts is a great point. And the beauty of what technology allows us to do today is, let's say I started at General Electric and I went through a leadership development rotational program like they have, I probably came up through the ranks with several people who've then dispersed throughout the country, going to smaller startups or other bigger companies. We can now search our LinkedIn database to go find those contacts and see where they can be useful in our business. And I don't care what business it is, having those contacts, leveraging, some people that you knew early in your career can be an extremely important way for you to not only get your business started, but be able to help you to sort of navigate at any point throughout your journey as a business owner.
That's great. If any of you who are watching this right now, you say to yourself, you know what, I'm in this field or that field. I wonder, is my job applicable? Would I make a good business owner? Why don't you type that into the comments? Just let us know what your job is, what your title is, what your industry is, and let's see if we could find the relevance and talk about some of the skills that you're exercising right now that could lend itself to being a good business owner, the ability to create and run a successful business. And if you have any other questions, please just put them into the comments and we will get to them in a little bit. Jeff, this has been really fascinating so far. I'm going to ask you to transition just for a second here and talk a little bit about moving forward, going into a business. Now, I think for a lot of people, what stops them from going into a business is the fact that maybe it requires a lot of capital, or maybe there's a high level of risk, or maybe they just don't know what it is they're doing. There's a lot of obstacles to business ownership. What can you say about that in terms of, is that real? Is that something that people should be concerned about?
There's no question that, there are businesses of all sizes, but I do think that there are a lot of people just think that every business to start on their own is prohibitive. Whether it's the startup costs, the ongoing expenses, obviously healthcare is an issue these days. It's very expensive. There are definitely concerns about that. And look, if you go into a business that has bigger infrastructure and or inventory costs, there's definitely higher barriers to entry than in some of the business services type opportunities. And, for instance, our business is extremely inexpensive to start and maintain. And you can actually, make back your investment in a very short period of time and start to become profitable. Now, again, it has to do, everybody is an individual, and we go through a pretty rigorous program of getting a confidential profile, going through what the startup costs and understanding what your capital requirements are. But overall, I think there is a very significant misconception about the fact that all business ownership is expensive and high risk.
Right. It's not like every business out there, you have to buy a manufacturing plant and invest millions of dollars in inventory. There are other options. Now, you are also somebody who's very well versed in the franchise world. And it seems to me that franchises have an incredible advantage over starting a business from scratch from so many angles. And the first one is the financial perspective in terms of entry. There's very small barrier to entry when it comes to franchises compared to starting a business from scratch.
Well, again, depends on which franchise, but yeah, there are a lot of businesses that you can buy that are franchises that have very low barrier to entry. Look, I think the bottom line is to net it out. Franchising is always known as being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. So you have all of that support, and it is beyond worth it if you find the right franchise system. And I think that's really important. There are thousands and thousands of franchise opportunities. I've been to the IFA, the International Franchise Association meetings, and I've walked the floor, and you wouldn't believe how many franchises there are. Obviously, you need to vet them. You need to vet them based on their history. We have been franchising at FPC since 1973. So I think that gives us a little bit of credibility to be able to say that we know what we're doing. But I think overall, what franchising does, in our case especially, is we can map out for you the first year, first 2 years, based on your revenue and expenses and everything, and make you feel comfortable from the get-go that there aren't going to be all these surprises. Very, very low cost to start and very low cost to maintain. Again, if you're going to go out and buy a McDonald's franchise or something with a lot of infrastructure and capital requirements, it's going to cost you a lot more, going to have a lot more risk. It's going to be a very different business. But I think the bottom line for somebody like me, I would have never gone into that kind of business. I know nothing about the fast food business or the restaurant business at all. what I understood sales and marketing, finance, human resources, like I talked to you about. So I decided to go into recruiting.
That's really interesting. So you talk a little bit about, yes, of course, you get a McDonald's franchise. I guess that they also, in order to get a McDonald's franchise, you really have to have that type of experience specifically. It's not like you were talking about before, where somebody who's a director of engineering or somebody who's in sales and marketing, they would see as someone who's qualified for that. So I guess there's an awful lot of franchise opportunities that people really, the door is shut to them. But you're also saying there are a lot of franchise opportunities where those skills do come into play and you don't have to have experience specifically within that industry.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's no question about it that there are good opportunities, but again, just got to vet the history of them, because I think, I've seen lots of seminars. I've sat on seminars where people say, they're giving you advice on how to franchise your business because somebody has what they think is a great replicatable idea, and then they go out and they try to franchise it. I knew somebody who decided to be the first ever to buy a supply chain consultancy franchise. And the franchisor failed and went bankrupt. So you just have to vet it properly, look at the history, really look at the franchise disclosure document. When you do buy a franchise, when you first meet with the team at a franchisor, they should be handing you what's known as a franchise disclosure document, or an FDD. Ours in particular is 150 pages, and it's got everything under the sun about us, about our history, about our team, the startup costs, the intellectual property. I just highly encourage you all to take a deep dive. It's not the most scintillating reading in the world, but it's something that I want to recommend that you make sure you vet before you move forward.
Well, it's full disclosure, and you have full transparency, which I'm sure people appreciate. And it's not like, and so let's talk a little bit about FPC and franchising and franchise opportunities. First thing I'd like to ask you is, why the recruiting business? Why is that business such a great opportunity for people? Is it something that's still viable in this market?
So I've been doing this now in one way, shape, or form since 1997. So according to my math, it's about 26 years. I have seen all aspects of this business, ups and downs. I've seen, like I mentioned earlier, technology trying to disintermediate the recruitment business. I actually spent time in the internet recruiting world telling people that they don't need to use recruiters anymore. But by 2007, I think people started to realize that, and McKinsey wrote an article about this a while ago, that recruitment is a human business. At FPC, we combine that high tech with that high touch. And it's really, really important. But most importantly, Rob, what we're seeing today, and this is not just me speaking about it, this is economists all over the world, that based on significant macroeconomic trends, we have an incredibly sustainable future in the executive recruitment business. Those macroeconomic trends are for instance, number one, and this is happening in a big way, baby boomers are retiring. They're falling off the back end of the labor force. A lot of them wanted to do that in 2008, 9, and 10, but unfortunately their 401ks weren't going to allow them to retire, but they're retiring now. Number two, we have a pervasive skills gap. Right now, there's over 9 million jobs open in this country and about 5.5 million people unemployed. But the fact of the matter is unfortunately, most of the people who are unemployed don't have the skills to fill the 9.9 million jobs that we have open. So that's something that has been happening for a while. Also, we're having fewer and fewer babies as a society, and we're just keep creating new jobs. If anybody who's on the call saw the fact that we, on Friday of last week, created 253,000 new jobs in this country, and unemployment ticked down to 3.5%. So we continue to create jobs, but we have fewer and fewer people to fill those jobs. And lastly, and what I think another very important macroeconomic trend is that when we do have children and we send them off to college, many of them are not working in or studying in the disciplines that will help to, fill those jobs. So all of these things for us basically show that there's really only one way to get to fill those jobs, and that's to call a recruiter who's going to pick up the phone and call your competitor to recruit somebody away.
Fantastic. That's great. So all those statistics that you mentioned, the state of the recruiting industry, it seems clear to me that you feel that AI is not going to impact the recruiters the way it is going to impact other industries?
Well, the way I look at it, and this has been proven time in and time out, every time new technology comes out, there's always the discussion that it's going to impact our business. Does it impact our business? Yes, but in many ways for the positive. Because, look, I started in this business before I had a computer on my desk. And today, through LinkedIn and ChatGPT, I mean, we're using our computers all day long. The fact of the matter is, and this is also another benefit about being part of the franchise system, is that we just use the tools better than corporations do. We are hungry, we're business owners, we're commission-based recruiters, and we use the technology in a better way. So technology in a lot of respects has made our job, I don't want to say easier, but it's helped efficiency. It's helped us be much more targeted. So I don't believe, at least not within the next 30, 40, 50 years, that recruiters are going to go away because of technology.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, how many times have you heard the recruiting business is done? When Monster.com came out, you must have heard that so many times, Career Builder, Monster, and now Indeed, that's going to be the end of recruiters. And it's just shown that the recruiting industry is very resilient.
It is. And yeah, we go through, just go through every other cycles like every other. And look, there's a lot of discussion about where we are in the economy right now, right? I mean, every talking head, every pundit, every radio station, I mean, they've been predicting that we're going to have a recession next week for the last 2 years, right? I have no doubts that we'll see a simmering in the economy. But based on some of the macroeconomic trends I just mentioned, I think that we will see less of a simmering in the recruitment market. I think we're going to see a higher bottom by far than we've ever experienced beforehand. And I just think there's a sustainability to what we do. And what we've seen over the last 3 years, and by the way, I mean, last year I think was the best year we've ever had since I've owned the business since 2007, since my father and I have owned the business in 2007. So super exciting right now. And we're seeing a ton of activity this year, hopefully leading to another great year. So I do think it's extremely resilient. But you've got to be trained properly. You've got to go through the process, learn from people who know what they're doing. The other part about being a franchise is just having group think. We have people constantly calling our corporate headquarters saying, hey, what about this technique? What about this technology? What are you seeing here? And what we do is we take all of this information, we organize it, we put it into new training classes. We have an FPC University call every month to do some sort of a new training, have a guest speaker. This coming week, like I mentioned, we're doing an FPC University call on ChatGPT and some of the best ways for AI, for recruiters to use AI.
So that's great. I love the idea of your FPC University. Wow, that is incredible in terms of that kind of support system that you have. Can you walk me through the process? So if somebody wants to be a franchisee for working with FPC, what is that like? Are they on their own? Do they get a support system? How does that work?
Come into New York and you visit with us, you spend the day with us, and then ultimately you decide that you want to move forward and buy a franchise. We do a full 2-week new owner training. It's really about 3 weeks with all the virtual software training that you get, but that's only the beginning. The initial training is just one part of the larger picture. It's the ongoing support. And what we see is some of the most successful people in our system are the ones who call us the most. Guess what? Because they have humility. They realize they don't want to make a mistake. And we sometimes get calls. Somebody may call me and say, hey, Jeff, I made a mistake. Help me fix it. But some of the best people in our system are the ones that call us beforehand and say, hey, I don't want to make a mistake. What are your thoughts on how to proceed? So we are here. That's what we do for a living. One really important point for those of you who are interested in buying a franchise, you always need to vet one important statistic. What percentage of the franchisor's revenue is made up of royalties versus new franchise fees? About 90% of our revenue made up by royalties. Now, why is that important? Royalties are the product of successful franchisees. So our whole plight here at the corporate office in New York is to make sure that our franchisees are successful, because that's what makes up 90% of our revenue. So it's really important to make sure to vet that out. But support is the cornerstone of what makes us, I think, successful. I mean, how else can you be doing this now for 50 years, right? We've been franchising for 50 years without that type of ongoing support.
Yeah, that is incredible. And I'm sure that that's why you've been so successful. Are all of your 60 plus 65 offices throughout the country, those are all franchises?
Well, I have one company-owned recruiting firm, but other than that, every one of them is a franchise.
I see. And I noticed from a comment here, I'd like to just draw this one out here. Shelley Blackman said here that business development can be a scary thing for those who are shy. Absolutely. What a great point. And then she says the best part about building confidence in that area is the partnerships we have within FPC. We don't do sales, we build relationships. Coming from industry, military is pretty easy to do that. Is that pretty typical in terms of what you see as far as sentiment from your franchisees?
Absolutely. I will tell you that Shelley is anything but shy, but I appreciate the comment. But she brings up an incredible point, and I think a differentiator for FPC, and that is that community of who we are and what we've built. We are an amalgamation of 60 plus businesses that feels like one company. And we have worked really hard, especially during COVID, to make sure that we build a community where people not only share ideas, but they also share business. And we have what we call our exchange network, which is a robust process to where one office gets a job, they work with another office to find a candidate, they make a placement, and they split the fee 50-50. And that could be two recruiters who place people in engineering that work together, or if I'm a recruiter that places people in finance and I get an engineering job, I reach out to a recruiter who places engineers, work together, and we split a fee 50-50. It expands your capabilities and allows you as a small business owner to not only get out to a fast start, it also allows you to diversify and scale your business.
Yeah. And what really sounds exciting to me is that it sounds like franchisees have the opportunity to, number one, own their own business, but number two, to be part of a company also where they have colleagues and there's networking and there's support. So you kind of have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, we have an owners workshop here in New York on June 15th, where we have people flying in. We have guest speakers, trainers, and we have another conference that's coming up in October for recruiters and owners. So we do a ton of networking. We really feel, and this is not just me saying it as the owner of the company. I've heard it from my franchisees that the effort we have made to make it feel like it's one big company has really helped them. Again, I know I've said it several times, but during COVID especially, it made people feel like part of a bigger whole, and also things like recognition. We have national competitions. You can see in the back all of these plaques that I have. Yes, I buy myself plaques when I achieve, and people all over the country have those plaques on their walls. We send them out. Just nice when you have a small business somewhere down anywhere in the country, and you have recruiters who work for you, and they achieve on a national scale, that they get recognized.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely perfect. And by the way, for anyone who would like more information on franchise opportunities with FPC, I invite you to go to the franchise website, fpcfranchise.com. A lot of great information there. And for anybody who wants to actually have a conversation with Jeff or one of his colleagues, Steve, they could talk to you a little bit more about whether or not franchising is right for you. There's a contact form at the bottom of that homepage, fpcfranchise.com. Fill it out, schedule a call, no obligation, of course, and you can ask your questions and see if this is the type of opportunity that fits you, your goals, your aspirations, and your lifestyle. Jeff, it's so important that somebody who is thinking about being a franchisee, that they understand that they're working with a quality company, one with a history, one that has a lot of experience. What can you tell? There's one award that I see here that looks extraordinary, and that's what is over there on the corner of the screen. FPC National is a Forbes top 10 ranked executive recruiting firm. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Forbes does a survey every year. There are 22,500 recruiting firms in the country. And we found out the news last week on May 3rd that we've been recognized on the list for the last 6 years. This was the first year we cracked the top 10. We were in the top 20. This is a survey of tens of thousands of hiring managers and human resources professionals, and they rank us based on professional search and executive search, and we ranked 9th in executive search and 11th in professional search this year, and that is due to all of the hard work and effort of our owners, our recruiters, and all of the support staff that work in our office to make sure that we put a quality product and service out. Really important, something I want to mention, Rob, and I think leads directly to this, is that we start with the foundation, because all of our franchisees started with a successful corporate career. We have a group of like-minded, successful professionals who then take our training to leverage their experience, and they combine the two to create what FPC is today. So I think we're already starting with a very high bar when people come to us, but we were thrilled and to be able to announce that to the system and be able to leverage that for a long time to come. So we're super excited. Thanks for bringing that up.
No, sure. I mean, it's impressive from an outsider looking in here. I mean, that for someone who is thinking about becoming a franchisee, they're becoming a part of a family that is very successful. Without those kind of accolades, the reputation in the industry, you're not walking into a mom and pop shop. You're walking into a very established company with established processes, with an incredible support system, a focus on training and development, and really a community of people who care about your success and who are there to help you and foster more of that success as well. It sounds like just a great thing that you have going on there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And, when it comes to experience, my corporate staff, we have 9 employees. We have over 150 years of experience in the recruitment business. So we always talk about, when we always say to people, no matter how crazy the scenario, always call us. We always get calls from people saying, oh, you're never going to believe this one. I doubt you've ever heard anything like this. But sure enough, somebody in our office has heard or been through a situation like that, so we can leverage it. And look, there's a lot of regulation around the recruitment business. You don't want to go it on your own, because there are laws around discrimination, ageism, like we talked about, whether it's background checks and drug screens and all sorts of things. There's a lot to navigate. Immigration, for instance, if you're working with people who are on H-1B visas or things like that, make sure that you are asking the questions. And that's why we always encourage people to come to us before they make any decisions.
Really fantastic. And I encourage people, if you want to get a recap of this conversation, just simply put #recap into the comments, and we'll be very happy to send you one. A lot of great information that you gave here, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that people are thinking about, and they probably have some questions too. So that site again is fpcfranchise.com. Scroll down, fill out a short contact form, schedule an appointment with Jeff or his colleague Steve, and they'll be able to give you all the information, specifics. I'm sure you have some questions about how this might work for you, and it's worth the phone call. If you've ever thought about business ownership, but you've been a little bit reluctant because you don't know where to turn, this might be the opportunity that is perfect for you, to give you that freedom, the flexibility, the financial security that is important to you. Jeff, do you have any other comments, any other advice that you'd like to give before we end today's conversation?
Nothing other than I would just encourage you, even if you have the slightest inkling, whether you're in transition or currently working, just schedule a call. Steve Margalit is our head of franchisee development. He does a great job in a very low pressure environment, confidential conversation, just to see if this is something that's right for you. That's all I'd say. Is no reason to just sit and wonder about it. Let's have a conversation and see if we can make heads or tails of it.
Sounds great. And I have one last question that it's on the back of everybody's mind, but I'm going to bring it out to the forefront. Any birthday plans?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be here in the office with our new franchisee because we're training him right now this week. So thrilled to be here.
Great birthday present.
Absolutely.
In any case, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Jeff, great to see you on this chat. And again, that's fpcfranchise.com. Check it out. And I hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks so much, Rob. This was great.
Bye now.